the Rock and Roll Express do like a youth pop moment.
And they're gonna be on NWA television too. So like, what the fuck ever.
And see like the greatest faction that never was in the Great Muta, Dean Malenko and
You're talking about the refs, or not the refs, the judges.
yeah, the greatest faction that never was, and Dean Malenko and the Great Muta and stuff like that. That was cool. And it's just good to see Dean Malenko in general because unfortunately he's suffering. We know he's suffering from Parkinson, so God bless him. But
Yeah, that's a rough
yeah,
one.
yeah. So little stuff like that. But yeah, see, definitely C area for me.
That's fair. I think that's fair. So let's move on. I do have one more story, or at least one more news bit that I think is interesting, and then we can open it up to whatever it is that may have caught your attention that you want to comment on. So Impact
Yep.
is building up to the return of Monty Brown. At least that's the working idea. And this isn't going to be a one-off performance either, to the best of my knowledge. Depending on when Monty comes in, which I'm assuming is going to be by the end of the year, if a deal is done, Monty's going to stick around for the throwback show. Makes sense. They're doing a TNA-themed throwback show for WrestleMania weekend. And normally I would have some trepidations about bringing back certain wrestlers at a certain age, but Ken Shamrock has worked. Johnny Swinger has worked. Marcus, I think we need to applaud Impact Wrestling for their ability to bring in guys we didn't think we wanted because it's been working. Rob Van Dam is a great heel, which, by the way, shouldn't surprise anyone. If you watched RVD pre-Invasion angle, all he ever was a heel. He's saying all the same things he said 25 years ago. So it works. Makes sense. You got Rhino, who's only 41, still as good as he was 10 years ago. But you're not asking him to carry a promotion, nor are you asking him to just be a joke. He can have a good match with Michael Elgin, and people are happy with it. Now Moose is doing the pounce. Moose is, cutting promos, alluding to Monty Brown. Impact is posting Monty Brown videos on their YouTube channel. These are not coincidences. They do this to build something up. They did the same exact thing with Ken Shamrock. So, Marcus, I want to just ask you, how do you feel about Impact bringing guys like Johnny Swinger, Ken Shamrock, possibly a Monty Brown if that deal does in fact happen, guys like Rob Van Dam, great Muda for a night? Are you okay with them going to the well on certain guys that maybe don't have a lot of immediate fan appeal, building them up and making them part of the show, or would you rather them to scrap the idea of anyone over 40 like Paul Heyman once suggested they do?
No, I mean I dig it because they're not, they're not doing with them to what they did with the main event mafia back in the day.
Which I attest was still a good idea, but I understand your point.
Yeah, in the way that they used them for far longer than they probably should have.
Yes.
Though they do get 100% credit, I guess, for facilitating Booker's kids, because it's freaking schedule. But yeah, they're putting them in positions that they should be in. To elevate the talent that would, like the Blanchards, the Mooses, the Callahans and stuff like that. I mean, you won't ever hear me complain about Monty Brown.
I love Monty
Because
Brown.
that's around. Yeah, that's around the time I came. He was probably one of the guys that got a lot of eyes on the product back then. Obviously besides AJ Styles and others, or just the X division overall. But yeah, it would be really cool for them to get. I mean, like, what the freak? Like, well, can we get a Where Are They Now segment on Elix Skipper? Because he got one of the most ran clips in the company's history.
I think I actually know the answer to that question. I believe he's a manager of an Applebee's. Or he's like a general manager of an Applebee's, like for the area.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be because yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not knocking that man. God bless that guy. But he got to be. I mean, you look at highlight packages of just the company's history overall. He's probably the first clip you see.
Mm-hmm. We should actually
It'll be
do
cool.
that. We should do a top 10 moments of Impact TNA history.
Yeah,
Because Elite
yeah, I'm
Skipper
right
is
there
probably
with you.
number one.
Yeah, Elix Skipper, man. Like, but him, Monty Brown, some other guys. I know they before Storm left the company. I mean, Storm departed from the company. They do some stuff with Chris Harris now and then. But I think it's a cool idea just because they're not putting them in positions they shouldn't be in. Like you said, they're not making Ronald carry a company or doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing with RVD just because basking off a form of glory. Like between him and between RVD and freaking what's his name, the X Division champion. Why am I forgetting this perv's
Ace
name?
Austin.
Um, Ace Austin. We practically got a Brazzer stable.
Not wrong.
We practically got and if Don Callis ever feels like not going into kayfabe or whatever, he could
Kayfabe,
join us.
kayfabe, kayfabe,
You
kayfabe.
know, kayfabe. Oh, that was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, you got these guys in a lot of good spots, and obviously, I guess we could get to the I guess the lead to the big announcement of Impact this week. But despite how some people feel about certain aspects with certain characters with the booking, I mean, look, they've been building towards Callahan being a champion since he debuted.
Mm-hmm.
We got to remember he debuted as what OVE's heavy, practically put that stable on his back, rebranded it, turned it into something else. Then, obviously, like you said, damn near created an entire character off of the Eddie Edwards thing,
Mm-hmm.
and but surely been building to this spot too. And the fact, like I said before, the faction as a whole has been carrying the two main feuds of the brand,
Mm-hmm.
Tessa and Brian Cage. So, this is probably some of the most consistent booking we've had in this company in years.
Ever. Like, you could argue '04 to late '06, because that's what I like to call the
Yeah.
glory days.
Yeah.
But that, I went back and watched a lot of that. A lot of it doesn't hold up anymore because it's just wrestling. But at a time,
Yeah.
that was different. Like what AEW is doing isn't new. It's 14 years old. TNA, when it was TNA back in the day, was doing the exact same thing on an hour television. They would do an interview, they would do a segment, they would do a match. And they would repeat that formula for an hour. And then they would repeat it for a week, and then a month, and then a year. It only lasted until Vince Russo came back in late '06, but it was still a good formula. It worked. When I look at what Impact is able to do with these random ass signings, it's like, who would have thought Ken Shamrock would be back in wrestling in 2019? I mean, I wanted it. I didn't think it would happen. Monty Brown, assuming that rumor that I was told was true and that he is going to be back for Impact, like, what a find. Like, you're not going to have Monty versus Sami Callihan at Bound for Glory for the world title. You might get him in a world title match on Impact on the television program, but Monty Brown's not going to be brought in to carry the headline. He's going to be there to help spice up the mid-card, which is what I think wrestling promotion should be doing. And one of the things that I've been actually applauding Impact for, was this ability for them to bring in these random-ass wrestlers that you wouldn't expect to see on, like, these house shows. Like, a couple months ago, they had that Collision in Oklahoma, or whatever it was called. They had MVP versus Chavo for a title in the middle of the show. Neither man works for Impact, but they're on the show. You've had shows with Great Muda headlining. You're bringing back ODB to do a charity event for her. It's going to be on an episode of Impact, but I think it's still going to qualify as a charity event. You have people like Stephen Bonner randomly showing up. You've had Raven showed up randomly one week, like half a year ago. You're doing a good job incorporating different things into your product that aren't going to be there consistently and can add a little bit of shock, pizzazz, and surprise to the show. And I think that's one of the things that, especially the WWE, is missing, is the idea of surprises. If Monty Brown does show up, and he does wrestle at the TNA event in April, that's just good business. That's smart booking. You're bringing in guys that are outside of the known scope, getting a little shock value, a little bit of the ooh la la, if you will, and you're running with it. And I say that's good. Good for business. Good ideas. I'm not a fan of the announcement of Tessa versus Sami Callihan for the world title. But if it sells, if it works, then fine, so be it. And not like Super Shredder, so be it. No, I'm cool, Kevin Nash, don't worry about that. But like in the sense that if it works and helps bring the product up, then I'm for it. I just don't think it will. That's where I differ. But I'm fine with it in the sense that, if it's good for the company, it's a good idea to go with. I don't think Sammy should lose that belt to Tessa, although I feel like he's going to. So I really don't know how I'm going to feel about that after it happens. Probably not too happy, but Tessa's also one of those people that you need to do whatever you can to appease her because you need her to stay. So if she's willing to trade a title in for a 3-year contract, you make that trade. And you do right by her because this company has done a great job ever since the new management has come in, keeping wrestlers happy. Yeah, you lost a few guys here along the way, but they were chasing money. James Storm, EC3, they were chasing money. And a few people left just because they weren't sure about the new management, even before they took over, like your Mike Bennett's, your Drew Galloway's, your Bobby Lashley's. But, at least then you knew why they were leaving. Guys, though, are staying in Impact. Gals are staying in Impact long term because they like how they're being treated. Save for Killer Cross. But if Killer Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux had been playing ball, I guarantee you they would have been a part of that group that got raises. So Impact really has done a great job revitalizing their image, keeping themselves out of hot water, and keeping their talent happy. I think, finding rare talents, finding unique draws, giving Johnny Swinger this 80s throwback gimmick was great. I've watched Johnny Swinger for 2 decades. Never in my life have I ever actually cared about it. Like, this was a dude who just stood around with his bodies behind disco. This is a dude who hung out with Pat Kenny. Like, Johnny Swinger was not someone to care about. Now he all of a sudden is. Like, what the fuck? But I'm for it, and I wasn't before. And yes, you have your Test World title matches, which I'm not goo-goo over. And you did bring in Joey Ryan, which, why? But you're using them in ways that don't make me hate myself. Like, I liked the disco stuff because it was literally done to make disco look like an ass. I'm 100% always on board with making disco look like an ass. So I'm very happy with Impact, with how they're managing their roster and producing their product. So let me ask you just a base question. Just random wrestlers that maybe you haven't seen in a decade, maybe longer. Who would you want Impact to bring in next? Just this random 40, 50, 60-year-old dude or dudette. Who would you want to see?
Random dude or dudette? Damn.
Yeah.
Now I'm going through the roller. Trying to think of these so-called dude or dudettes. I was about to say a name, but I'm like, he was played by 30 different guys.
Doink the Clown?
I was finna say Suicide, but no.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I'll give you mine as you percolate. Yeah. Because it would be interesting to see what they would do with him and to see what the reaction that he would get. And he also returned to the ring this year. Buff Bagwell. You can't sit here and tell me that you would rather have Johnny Swinger over Buff Bagwell on just name value alone. So imagine what they did with Johnny Swinger, and imagine what they could do with someone like Buff Bagwell. Like, that's some out-of-the-box thinking right there. Now, obviously, Buff Bagwell wouldn't be in the world title scene. He would have a role similar to Johnny Swinger. In fact, Johnny Swinger and Buff Bagwell as gigolos trying to sleep with the women of Impact roster, 100% would watch. Especially if him and Jordan Grace clothesline Johnny Swinger. Be all for that. All for that.
2 for me, just because they have had their roots in Impact. It would be cool, and she, even in her age, even as she's gotten older, she's maintained a great look about herself, and she's always had an intensity. If she was 100%, I'd like to see Tara back.
Okay.
And even though this guy's past 40, Kid Cash.
Yeah, Kid Cash. Oh man, I often forget about Kid Cash. I remember when he came back in like 2012, and he was so jacked.
Yeah, jacked and just filled with piss and vinegar, man.
Oh God, that's great.